Okay, let's go to the last item in our Asian Century News and Development. Please, Marnie.
The RIC, core of BRICS, meets in Moscow. On Monday, April 18, the Russian capital hosted a meeting of the foreign ministers of Russia, India, and China as part of the regular RIC dialogue. Sergei Lavrov, Sushma Swaraj, and Wang Yi discussed the situation in the Middle East, UN reforms, and other pressing international problems.
Okay, it's beautiful to watch the three major countries of BRICS. Those three countries, particularly India and China, already represent almost half of the world's population. And the problem with Western information systems is that they discount the gravity, the weight, the gravitas of these three countries. That is why we're giving emphasis to this. And in the Philippines, we have no discussion of the BRICS at all. In terms of business, economics, and so on, what do you think?
I think that where the trade is concerned, they can discuss directly between them. Depends on the type of business. So they are the major markets outside of Europe and the US. But when we're talking about possibly the integrating the infrastructure in the world, something like the Silk Road program, there are more countries need to be involved because they become part of the overall structure that needs to be integrated, not only in terms of the roads and technologies of the railways, but also the immigration, the customs, and so forth, which will unleash all the economic energies, even on the backward areas of the world.
Okay, since we're now in the second segment, and this segment is entitled Focus Philippines China, we review all these issues in relation to the Philippine situation. For example, the Australia Week in China, which is a big thing. It's intended to boost by so many percentage the trade between China and Australia. And one of the items you mentioned is tourism. We'll discuss that in a while in relation to the Philippines. But I noted that when I was reviewing the news items that we could discuss, we can see that China is really trying to reach out to the Philippines and to the Filipinos. That's why regularly, every Tuesday, they have in two newspapers, the Philippine Star, they have this special page. In Philippine Star, it's Window to China, where you will see what priorities China is projecting to the world. And in this past week, they are putting emphasis on their special relations with Australia. In Bulletin, it is the many facets of China. I would encourage people to try to understand China through these efforts of China to make itself understood to the Filipino people. Now, Philippine-China trade has been growing despite all these blown-up issues. And in one area, that is tourism, there is improvement also. Our researchers have given us the data that tourism in the Philippines from China rose from 390,000 in 2014 to 490,000, almost 500,000, almost additional 100,000 in 2015. Can we target higher, di ba? And number two, Chinese tourists to Boracay was number one in numbers in 2016 in the months of January and February. In our country where jobs and employment opportunities are still a difficult issue, I think this should be encouraged. But how will we do it? Can we have a Philippines Week in China one of these years?
I think we have been welcome to put up our exhibits there in China before. Right now, we don't even have to do that because they're very willing to come in. They really enjoy the Philippines. There are two things we need: infrastructure, and second, that we don't need peace. We don't need to put aside the dispute. What we need is infrastructure, and what we need is the feeling that it's safe. Because the news going outside, the kidnappings, the petty crimes, and so forth, make people feel not safe. Why tourism is so important? Because the world is moving away from agriculture in the sense that the world is urbanizing. The younger people don't want to work in farms, so we have to use machinery, equipment, mechanized farming. And the other major area, manufacturing, we know the Philippines is not really competitive in. If we talk about minerals, I don't know why the Philippines is talking about it's so important to protect those, because right now the value is so low, it's dropped so much, and it always enriches the few companies. It doesn't enrich the country. But tourism enriches everybody. From the student who is the tour guide, to the hotel owner, to the person who's renting out their room, everybody gets better off. And it will diversify our BPO economic base.
Yeah. But it is important also to create the environment for the growth in the tourism arrivals from China. Well, let us remind the public about the arrivals in Japan and in Vietnam and in Thailand, if you have the figures.
Yes.
Yeah?
Because Thailand has 6 million tourists from China, and Japan, which is technically at war with China, had 5 million last year, which means the people aren't thinking of war. They just want to enjoy themselves, and they just want to do business. So at an average $2,000 spent per tourist, that's about $10 billion. It's practically lifted the Japanese economy and the Taiwanese economy. Philippines has the lowest, is the only country in Southeast Asia that has less than 2 million. So we can immediately multiply, I'm sure, up to 3 million more within 6 years if we put our act together.
And from 500,000 to 6 million, that is a fantastic income for our people.
And it will be dispersed income, it will be inclusive growth.
And that is why it is a disservice to keep creating this tension for no material benefit to the country. In the first place, this claim with China not having made it plain that they will not abide by whatever happens in the arbitration. It does not benefit anyone anything.
Historically, all the decisions of the UN and the US has been against China regardless of the background. You can look at it historically, so they don't feel that they should have to join in that. But, that's a debatable thing. In any case, the Philippines will benefit from not focusing on that all the time because all the willingness is there to progress in other areas of the relationships.
Yes. Well, I noticed that since 2012 to the present, there is a definite thawing of cultural and political perception about China. I just noticed a recent Inquirer editorial, which although 90% of the article would go by the traditional critical view of China with regards to the China Sea issue, at the last paragraph, it said that even the U.S. should stop stoking the fires, so that everybody has a face-saving way to resolve the problem. So we also have seen how many of our presidential candidates say that they are going to open talks with China when the opportunity comes.
Well, we hope that the moderates will win over the hawks, but of course there are people, and especially those outsiders, not Filipinos, who are trying to stoke the flames for geopolitical reasons. And it depends on both maybe the next government, the attitude of the overall atmosphere, as well as the forces at work. So we hope that the moderates will win, and that will be good for everybody and good for the whole world.
Okay. Now, with regards to employment, we checked the figures. Of course, we know that we have over 100,000, around 140,000 OFW in Hong Kong. But in the mainland, we have 12,000. A lot of them are talents, designers, editors in newspapers, on television, broadcast, and so on. This is an area where we should really explore potentials and possibilities.
I think the Filipino professional is very respected abroad because I come from industry and I know so many who have become the heads of the marketing, the production, the designs in China, and a lot more can be in there if we work together, because today people should concentrate more on economics and bettering everybody's lives instead of politics.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to feature singing duet, the Crystal Duet, who have worked in China as singers, and we'll ask them about their experience in China. I encountered them in a local place, Coconut House. That's in the Quezon City Circle. They sing every Sunday over there. And I had some drinking there with coconut wine. By the way, I can give you a bottle later on, coconut wine. Yung coconut is something we should promote in China. You have 1.3, 1.4 billion people who love coconut. It is part of the Chinese folklore health tonic, coconut, di ba? And we're not tapping that. But later on, we'll introduce the crystal duet to our audience. By the way, also talking about jobs in China, are we ready with our visual on the China Radio International? China Radio International it's like the Voice of America broadcast of the U.S. And in this website, they have stories of Filipinos working in China. So we would encourage our audience to visit the China Radio International. It is also heard on shortwave, but it's easier on the internet. If you can go down a bit, you will see certain narratives about Filipinos who have established businesses in China. Let's see if I can spot any of them. Yeah, the one on the lower right, if you will see, is a masseur who set up a spa in Beijing. You can click there and listen to his story. It's around 12-minute narrative. Someday, in the coming episodes, we will show some of these. But the point here is there are a lot of job opportunities and business opportunities if the Philippines focuses on this. Okay, anything to add there? Then we'll introduce our crystal duet in a while. Anything to add, George?
Well, I'm sure that everyone knows in Asia that the Filipinos are #1 in music, and the role of music is very important because it goes beyond business, beyond logic, beyond politics. People feel a kinship if they listen to music, so let's listen to them. Filipinos are the best.
Later on, if I get a chance, I will volunteer to sing also with them later on. So, what else do we discuss in this China-Philippine focus? You have anything in mind?
I think the business is growing and there are more investments taking place. We should not put obstacles in the path. This constant, every week there's 2 headlines in each of the major dailies attacking China as a bully. If they report the things objectively, let them do that, but let them also report the perspective of how other countries are doing. And let's focus on economics and improving the lives of our people.
About this bullying, I saw it again this term in the column of Dong de los Reyes in Manila Times. And obviously, he hasn't studied the issue well, because I wonder if we can prepare it for the third segment, the visual on the number of islands and features that Vietnam has occupied. That's the article, and I highlighted it. Maybe I can read it a bit later. And also we have the Inquirer. What about the Inquirer editorial? Are you ready with that? We'll just read it a bit later. So we're going to take our break right now. Are we ready? Okay, let's take this break, and we'll come back and also have a light moment with the crystal duet. Let's take this break.